Welcome to the Small Business Surgeon Podcast, the show where we dissect the businesses of top producers, examine their growth strategies, and share with you the bare bones of their success. I am your host, Samuel Smith, and I'm glad you're here. Let's operate.
Hey guys, what's up? Welcome to this week's episode of the Small Business Surgeon Podcast. Guys, I'm very excited today because our guest is a local legend in the Texas country music world and has one of the greatest radio voices that I've ever heard. Please welcome Program Director for Willie 98.7 and host of the Second Cup Morning Show, Kenny Graves. Kenny, welcome.
Samuel, thank you for having me on, man. I'm excited about this. This ought to be a great time.
Well, I figured it's time that the interviewer became the interviewee, and we got to poke around and learn the history of Kenny Graves, man.
It is a little different being on the other side of the questions for a change, yes.
Well, I've been doing some studying about you, and I know a whole bunch of things about you, from Insight Magazine's 23 and 24 Radio Personality of the Year, to Kenny's Corner, the local news show, and all the way from growing up in Paris, Texas. So let me ask you this. What was it like speaking French as a child?
The only French I know is what I learned from Pepe Le Pew watching cartoons.
Oh, man, that's the oldest cartoon, man. Yes. So Paris, Texas to College Station. I want to know the story of Kenny and starting out of high school. Like, what did you do and where did you get your start? Because were you like in love with music from the start? You knew that was going to be your career, or did you find your path to what you do another way?
Well, I did love music since I was old enough to remember hearing music. I mean, small child. And I formed my taste for music pretty early.
Mm-hmm.
I never liked my voice. I still don't really care for my voice, but I got into radio right out of high school. In late 1988, a program director for a brand new station coming to town moved in next door to me, and we started talking. He's a little bit older than I.
Mm-hmm.
But we hit it off, became friends, and he's like, hey, come in and make an air check where you go in and record your voice, see how it's going to sound on the radio. And he hired me, and I was god-awful. I was terrible.
No, come on.
Like 2 a.m. to 6 a.m. Yeah, well, it was bad because being Northeast Texas, I had a horrible accent. I think I still have an accent. It's not as bad as it used to be. Just practice and time, I suppose.
Now, in the 1980s, radio was all live, wasn't it?
Yes. Yeah, so, it was a beautiful thing.
Mm-hmm.
And I got out in 95, and then I didn't get back in until 2018. So I'm Rip Van Winkle. I went to sleep when radio was one way, and I came back to radio, and it's a completely different beast now. Some parts are much better. Some parts aren't nearly as good, I don't think. But overall, it's still a great medium.
I would like to get into the business of radio a little bit later in the podcast, because it fascinates me how it's gone from a titan to very, very quickly being somewhat irrelevant to going back up to more and more people starting to find it again and tune into it from a local perspective. So I do want to touch on the business of radio stuff, but I want to go back more to your music. How did you get your taste in music? Was it handed down to you from parents, or was it siblings, or what were some of the first records that you came across? You said, hey man, this is pretty good stuff.
I was a late in life child, not from my mother. I think my mother was 34 when I was born, which is reasonable. It's not really young, but my father was 45 and a World War II veteran.
Oh, wow.
His taste in music was much different. I had much older siblings. So I think my siblings were 12 and 13 or 13 and 14 when I was born. I had heard a lot of music from them, and I'm a lifelong Rod Stewart fan because of that.
Oh, wow. Okay.
I'm a big redneck, love country music. Of course, I like rock and roll like everybody. I grew up on the 70s rock and, of course, the 80s when I was a teenager. It was a big time. But my music taste formed really early. So my dad, I got the old Western style of country music with Marty Robbins and Ray Price and some of the great vocalists. My mother loved Charlie Pride, Mickey Gilley, and George Jones, names like that.
Got it, yeah.
And then I started forming my own taste. Around 11, I had a job, and I started using all the money I made to buy albums back when albums were the only thing out before cassettes. And inherited a lot from my brother and sister. Loved the 70s rock and roll and some of the outlaw country. So it was a crazy mesh of things, like a gumbo.
Right.
Styles. And I kind of formed my own taste out of that.
So I like the way you used gumbo to describe Texas music.
That's kind of what it's like.
Well, it's got influences from just all over the place. It really is like a mixing pot, and I like what the boys from Liverpool did to the old Delta blues, and then they sold it back to you guys, and then it came back, and then it bounced back across from Hendrix. And then the Stone, it was almost like ping pong between America and England there in the late 60s, early 70s when Zeppelin was using all the blues roots. And, I find the history of music and the way it all intermingles fascinating. Did you get hooked on any of the Hendrix and Led Zeppelin stuff back in the day?
A little before my time. I found more of that late '60s sound when I was in my mid-teens. About the time I had my driver's license. And I did and Credence and a lot of that same time frame, Three Dog Night and a lot of that. But yes, and I hear what you're saying about the blues. And then what it did was it went from Hendrix and it transformed into what we had here as Southern rock.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
The Allman Brothers and things like that. So, and Leonard Skinner. And all that kind of just transformed in that ping pong you were talking about.
I'm a huge fan of some of the harmonies in Southern rock. I think a lot of those vocal parts go unappreciated. Anyway, dude, what was the first record you bought? Do you remember that?
First record I purchased was probably Burning Love by Elvis Presley.
Oh, wow. Okay.
That I can remember. And it was at Sears Roebuck. And Sears back then sold all the 45s.
Oh, man. I remember all the new releases would come out on a Tuesday back home in England. I remember waiting at the newsagent to be able to buy 45 singles with my paper round money.
That's what I was doing. Yeah, 66 cents is what it cost for a 45 record back then.
Oh, shit. I think ours were about £2, so probably the equivalent of a couple of bucks. So okay. I was probably half a generation behind you. But dude, you walked straight out of high school into a radio job. What were the early years of radio like for you? And what was it like finding your niche and finding your groove?
Well, like I said, it was a train wreck to begin with. But once I got in there, and I got a little feedback from my buddy, I'd record myself. And you could set a cassette in there, and every time you turn the mic on, it would record until you turn the mic off. So when you got done, you just had a stream of basically you talking.
Right.
And then he said, you need to just read everything you can find and record yourself reading it and fix your eyes and your E's because, with the horrible accent I had. So like if I said 9, it was like 9. It was really. And so, and once I started working on that and I did it diligently every day and I got better pretty quickly. And within a few months, I could tell a huge difference. And enough that they put me on 6 to midnight as opposed to being up and doing the 2 to 6 a.m. shift. And so I was very happy about that. And I want it to be really good. So I think I worked 6 months, 7 days a week without a day off.
Oh, wow.
I wanted to improve. And the only way, like anything, to get better is getting out there and doing it.
Yes.
You can't simulate it.
It's not luck. No, sir. It's hard work. And I remember back in the day, the guy that had the microphone between 9 o'clock and midnight was pretty popular with the teenagers. Like we would all listen to the late night radio show and call the DJ and stuff.
Yeah. And I'd switched over to a rock station. So we were playing everything from current stuff around 90 and 91. And I had an all-request Saturday night show from 6 to 10, and that became quite a popular thing. And I really enjoyed it because it's hard to get a grown man that's about 40 to call a radio station. But when you get grown men calling on a Saturday night, and they were getting ready to go out with their dates or wives, but they wanted to call first. They had a certain song they wanted to hear. So my boss was very happy. We had grown men calling in, and I was recording them and playing back, as they were requesting songs and then playing the song after the call.
Yeah.
She was very happy about that. And then it built my confidence and I kept working at it.
Well,
it's a grind.
Back in the day, though, like having your name read out on the radio, you was a big deal. And because there was only ever so many radio stations, so the chances are your mates were listening to the same one while they were getting ready at their house. And so, people heard that. I forget how cool life was back before we had cell phones.
It was very simple. It was very simple, and in a lot of ways, it was better.
I mean, we used to go to now I'm showing my age now. We used to go to the phone box. We'd go to the phone box and call the radio station while we were getting ready to go out. And then, yeah, man, crazy times. So that is how the industry has changed some, but we'll get to that in a little bit. Tell me about some of the stories back in the day, and the opportunities that being a DJ opened the door to for you, because you ended up in music management, didn't you?
I did some PR work. That was many years later, between getting out of radio and getting back into radio.
The internet is forever, sir.
Yes, it is. It is indeed. But I did get to DJ at a lot of dance halls, which are a dinosaur now because I was in radio, and they figured why not? And I love doing a live crowd. And so we had some good spots. We had a big 2-story dance hall in my hometown, and it'd get packed out on the weekends and play music there. And there was another one up north, right inside of Oklahoma, that was a huge one, had 1,000 square foot dance floor. And I got to do a lot of that stuff. So that was pretty cool. But I was from a reasonably small town, kind of Paris is off to itself. There's not another comparable town for an hour in any direction.
It's pretty unique, and it's not really on the way anywhere, so it kind of gets left to itself. It developed at its own speed. I think I quite like it.
And it is kind of out there. It's a good place to retire, by the way. And it's not a good place to be young, but it's a great place to retire.
I'll bear that in mind.
Yes.
So, dude, I've totally lost my train of thought, and I've got an entire page of questions, because normally I do an entrepreneurial show and we talk about the ups and downs of entrepreneurship. So let's talk about when you left radio in the mid-90s. What did your career look like then, and what did you spend your time doing after that?
Well, the reason I got out of radio, the station I'd been at for the longest and had basically family, we were a close-knit group. The station sold. The owner of the corporation that owned us passed away, and the board of directors wanted to sell it. And the gentleman wound up buying it, and he came in and brought in what we called digital DJs back then, or computerized tracking now. But he brought that in, so there was no need for employees. So we saw the writing on the wall, got out, and I could have stayed in radio. At that point, I felt like I was doing pretty well. I'd been in about 6 years, had a good following, and enjoyed it, and I didn't mind working any time slot.
Right.
But I had young kids, and I didn't want to move an hour away at that point. My kids were little, and back then, speed limit was still 55 miles per hour. And so if you're driving 45, 50 miles somewhere, it took an hour.
Dude, it was miserable.
I wound up getting into the gaming part of things. The Choctaw Nation of Oklahoma, which was a lot of fun, and I love my Choctaw Mafia up there. I'm like one of the tribe, and it's a great culture, and I had a good time with that. And my mid-20s were kind of a blur, so we tend to time on pretty regular at the time when I was young.
Is that a thing? Is that a thing about guys our age? Like, yeah, as I lived it, I always thought I'd remember it, and the older I get, the more of my 20s is just lost to history. I'm very glad they didn't have iPhones back then and Facebook. I would have been in a lot of trouble.
Same here. But it was a good time while it lasted. But
yeah.
And I got out of that. I finally would move back home. I wound up working as a contractor for the states, doing some transportation stuff. Eventually got into oil and gas, and then moved down to the Bryan College Station area, kind of where you're at.
Oh, no kidding. What did you do in oil and gas?
Well, I did non-destructive testing, and then I got into quality control. I was an independent contractor for a good little while there. Got hired by a fantastic company in Houston. I made it up to quality manager, and I worked on projects kind of in different spots across the U.S., and then that company had to sell because the price of oil had dropped down to about $12 a barrel.
That's the golden rule of oil and gas.
They held on as long as they could, and that was I called that Camelot. It was a place no one was going to quit. It was a wonderful place to work. Great team. I'm still good friends with a lot of people I work with. I miss them.
Yeah.
But I'm much happier doing this. And then I would wind up working somewhere else as a project manager. I was miserable, and I was driving home one day and told my wife that I think I just want to go back and do radio. And she didn't know me when I was younger, so we didn't meet till I was 40.
Uh-huh.
And she's like, "You're going to what?" So I hadn't mentioned radio a whole lot to her. I said, "Yeah, honey, we're going to be poor now." So the paychecks aren't there like they used to be. And I mean, it's better to get up in the mornings. And not once in my 6+ years have I gotten up from bed at 4 a.m. and dreaded coming to work. I'm excited to be here every single day.
That's so much of what it's about. Without getting too off track, I read a poll yesterday, because today's the election day that we're recording this, and I read a poll and it said, "Are you better off or worse off than 4 years ago?" And I've had a few ups and downs in business over the last 4 years, and financially I'm worse off, but spiritually, mentally, health, relationships, my kids, everything's way better. Everything. The amount of responsibility I've got is less. The amount of stress I've got is less. And so, like, your measurement of success, stepping away from the oil field and giving up that money, is everything else you gained that wasn't directly tied to your finances. And so when you ask that question, shit, I'm way better off than I was 4 years ago. But I've had a couple of bumps, yeah? But like, sacrificing that revenue and sacrificing that to gain back that time and to spend the time with my kids and to be able to do what I want and to get out of bed every day and be excited about it. That's where the trade-off comes in. So when you moved back to radio, how did that go? And what was it like settling in to a small town, knowing that you were going to become a community leader out there?
Well, that part didn't occur to me right off the bat. I didn't know how much radio had changed, but I was working, doing part-time work on the weekends because I was still in oil and gas, and I just found a spot where I could do a couple of shifts on the weekend, and I was rusty. It was like 24 years since I'd been on the air.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. It took a little while to get up to speed of doing it again, and timing and a lot of that, and confidence is a lot of it. You've got to have confidence or it doesn't come through on the air. So it took a little bit, and I just told my boss at the time, I was like, if something does come up, full time, I'd certainly like to discuss it. He knew I was not happy in the position I was at. And I got a call out of the blue one afternoon and said, "Can you come in and meet with the general manager?" And I said, "Sure, I can be there." And they just offered me a position here. And I was like, when would I need to start? I need to give notice. And they like, "You give your notice and we'll get you on the air there." And that was in 2018 when I started on the air here. And I think it was around July. I think the very first part of July.
And what was the strangest difference that you noticed with the 24-year break? What was the one thing that struck you when you walked in this? Was it like sitting down at the console of the Starship Enterprise and not recognizing any buttons?
No, but there was things that weren't here, like turntables for records. There were no CD players to go and hit play on.
No kidding.
You'll all computerized. No, the music's all on computers, and you can pull it up and play and this and that. But it's not. It's a little different than being able to reach over and hit the play button. It's a little different. Yeah, it was more tangible, and that part's a little different. And it's just you never hardly see anybody. I mean, we have stuff here, but used to, everything was live 24/7, 365. If you called the radio station at 3 a.m. Sunday morning, Christmas Day, whoever was on the air answered the phone.
Yeah.
That's just it. Everything was manned by a person. Now you're able to do it and have somebody that may not live here doing it from another location. It's just, it's one of the great things that technology has given us. It does make it easier to do, but I'm not quite sure it makes it, for small towns like where I'm at, I'm not sure it makes it better. I think it's probably great in Chicago and New York and LA, maybe Houston, but smaller markets. But then again, small markets don't bring in the revenue. So
yeah,
it's a circle.
You think of what we've lost. And almost 2 years ago now, I moved into an office at my house, and I decided I was going to make my entire company online, and I can travel whenever I want, just load up my laptop and off I go. And yet the idea of an office that's full of people that you see every day, like all of my human interaction is over Zoom. Like I miss standing around drinking coffee with people and going to the photocopier to pick up your print and stuff like that. It seems like for all the convenience in the world, we've been robbed of those like little relationships. There's nobody to steal candy from when they're not looking. Now I've got your attention. Just take a minute and pause. Imagine your business running the way it's supposed to. Your inbox is cleared, your social media posts are scheduled, leads are being called in real time, all while you're meeting for lunch with your newest client. You're free to focus on what actually matters, growing your company, closing deals, building your brand. A virtual assistant can transform how you work, and that is where I can help. If you are ready to see how a vetted, trained virtual assistant can take your business to the next level, go to followsam.live and just click on that big green button. It really is that simple. All right, thanks for listening. Back to the show.
That's a good point. It's a good point.
Or give candy too. Be the guy that
I do keep a nice jar of peppermints here, so if you do make it by the studio one day, I mean, you can have one of my peppermint candy.
Well, when I was in law, running around in oil and gas, I made it a point to carry candy with me or to bring donuts every once in a while because, you never know when you might need something. And I think that everybody being online, I think we've just lost that ability to tell somebody they're wearing a nice sweater today and just make them smile a little bit. And I really enjoyed the office interactions and the courthouse interactions I used to have. I think that's probably the one thing I miss about being completely remote, is finding a little family to work with and work alongside.
And the interpersonal skills you get to use. And you use them, the more you use those, the better they are.
Yes.
Like a muscle.
Yeah. I got the opposite of that, where everybody thinks I'm a cranky old man now. I think you have to earn that designation, though.
Yes, a lot of times, but in my case, I'm just hangry.
I see that. I see that. So tell me about Navasota, man, because I love that little town. I love what it's done over the last 20 years. We used to go down there racing to the little 8th mile racetrack back in the day. And the amount of work they've done, and gentrification is the wrong word, but it's almost the right word. Navasota is definitely on the up and up. What's it like working down there? Is it like being in the shadow of College Station, or does it really feel like it's its own separate little entity?
Definitely its own entity. Can I brag on my little town?
Please do. Please. I love it down there.
This is a great town. It takes a little while if you're not from here to kind of be brought in and welcome to that inner circle. But, so I paid some time here. I've been here for a while, and I'm certainly in the fold now. I love it. And what they've done is the growth that's coming in because of the 249, the Aggie Expressway, as they call it.
Yeah.
A lot of the growth is going to occur outside of downtown. They're going to maintain downtown's integrity and what makes it quaint and beautiful and why people like it, the charm that it has.
Yeah.
And Navasota will grow on the outside and keep everything downtown kind of as is and just keep building it up. The beautification projects have been fantastic. They've upgraded all the sidewalks and everything. And we have great shops here, great places to eat.
That one hotel, I went to a few Chamber of Commerce events down there.
P.A. Smith.
It's incredible what they've done in there. It looks amazing on the inside. So, yeah.
But it's a jewel, I tell you. It's really good.
Yeah. Yeah. So what do you like the most about life in Navasota?
Well, they accepted me like this is my hometown. And everybody seems to pull in the same direction. And I have to do news too. I'm not a news guy. Let me be the first to say that. It's part of my job description, so I do news.
You should embrace it. Come on now.
I do my very best, but it's not my strong point. I'm not more of a monotone read stuff. I'm more of off the cuff.
Mm-hmm.
But I do listen. We have Julie Peters does news here at noon and 5. I handle the 7 a.m. news, but we have to go through and listen to city council meetings twice a month, but they have those, and commissioners court and sometimes school board meetings. But I'll tell you, from everyone, all our elected officials all pull in the same direction. There's not a lot of infighting and backbiting and things you get in larger communities.
Right.
So that's a really good thing because everybody's on board, and the growth I've seen since 2018 is just miraculous. And it's just, and the growth they're having now is smart growth. and they're thinking long term. So I think that's going to be a great benefit for decades to come. They just stay on this track.
I like it down there, and it's nice to see the town do such a controlled job of growing, with so many people putting so much thought into how it's supposed to work. I've been quite the fan of the Navasota Blues Fest over the last few years, and watching that grow.
It came back.
Tell me about that, man. Tell us where that came from, and tell us a little bit about the Blues Fest and why it's such a big deal in Navasota.
Well, we are the blues capital of Texas, the home of Mance Linscomb. And so he's one of the early greats in blues music.
Mm-hmm.
Well, they had the Blues Fest, I don't know how many years, but they had stopped doing it. I guess the person who had ran it for all the years, for whatever reason, I don't know if it was health, age, what have you, that just died off and stopped.
Mm-hmm.
And it was a 10-year absence. And Lucy Ibarra, who's the executive director of our Chamber of Commerce now, and does a phenomenal job. She is just knocking it out of the park. She's only been in that position a year and a half. It's unreal. No, I think it was this year. Maybe she's been there 11 months. But it's crazy what she's accomplished. But she brought back Blues Fest last year. It's kind of a last-minute deal. So this year was a really big one. And we had it 2 weeks ago. And we had a good crowd and a beautiful venue and some great talent. She brought different styles of blues in. And Ian Moore out of Austin, he's been around forever. I think I played him in radio in the 90s on cable.
Oh, wow.
When Stevie Ray Vaughan had that crash and lost his life, he was the first person signed to that record label after Stevie passed. And he was a blues guy, and he was legit. He should have been signed. He would have been signed regardless. It just happened to fall right after Stevie Ray passed away. He was our headliner, and he was just fantastic. Everybody they had. So it's a whole vibe here.
Yeah.
We have over by Classic Rock Coffee Company, if you haven't been, they have Blues Alley, and they have the murals on the wall outside, and it's neat to see. There's a lot of history with the blues stuff here.
I got to give a shout out to the coffee company. Was it Classic Rock Coffee Co.?
Yeah. And, the mayor's place, Bert Miller. I call him America's mayor.
Oh, well, it just, I went there. I took Nina there for breakfast one day, and they had Texas shaped waffles, and it was the most.
Texans love Texas. See, I have the little Tex. I call them Texi. These little Texas shapes all over my shirt.
Oh, I see that. Yeah. It's on the camera, so it just kind of looks a little wavy, but I see what that is.
Somewhere at home, I'm sure I've got a bag of Texas shaped tortilla chips. I mean, there's Texas shaped everything.
Yeah, you probably got them out of Buc-ee's, huh?
No, but they probably carry those. I would think.
I don't know, dude.
How do you describe Buc-ee's to someone back home across the pond?
Oh, jeez.
Can they grasp it?
No.
You're like, the bathrooms are pristine. There's beef jerky. There's
absolutely nothing like Buc-ee's in Europe. There's nothing to compare it to. Buc-ee's is it's just a phenomenon. It's something that, like, dude, go back to 1995 when you're on the radio, yeah?
Mm-hmm.
Right? Do you remember what the gas station bathrooms were like?
Oh, don't remind me.
Right. So we all knew, because I got here in 2000, and I remember being on tour as a musician. I remember what the restrooms were like. We all knew there was a need for a brightly lit gas station. God, some of those gas stations at night, dude. We all knew there was a need for it. Brightly lit gas station, freshly cooked food, clean toilets, warm coffee. We all begged for it. And yet not one of us...
Fresh coffee, too.
Not one of us thought to build it. And the one guy that did, look what happened, man. Like, and in hindsight, it seems like the most obvious thing in the world to build because of the state of petrol stations in the early 2000s in this country. It was terrifying. I'm glad we don't have to go back there. Yeah, so yes, I'll spend a little bit extra and go to Buc-ee's and buy some stupid thing that's going to make me fat because how do you explain it to European, dude? It's a phenomenon of Texas, and I hope it continues. I really do.
Well, if you're going to build a Buc-ee's, it had to be in Texas. They had to have like 100 gas pumps, and that's at a medium-sized Buc-ee's. They go up from there. It's crazy.
It's
marketing genius.
And it's a cathedral of capitalism. Good for him, man. Good for them. They solved the problem. Like, we're not scared to stop and pee at night, and we've always like, I don't know if you remember some of the gas stations. I don't know how much touring you did, but we're grateful for Buc-ee's around here.
Very true. So you were a musician as well. You worked in law.
No,
You worked in oil and gas.
I was a drummer. I hung around with musicians. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Fair enough. Fair enough. But you were a touring musician.
Yes.
You worked in oil and gas, and you worked in law.
No, so I worked in oil and gas law.
Wow.
So I was I was a landman back in the day. Started out as a lease hound, making copies and calling people trying to lease their property, and then ended up. I took a huge interest in title. What interested me most about title was division, and the spreadsheets you got to build. I did a computer course when I was a kid. I was like fascinated with Microsoft Excel and being able to build. I don't know if you remember in 2004 and 2005, nobody had ever heard of Microsoft Access databases. Nobody was building like legal libraries inside of databases. And so we were right on the cutting edge of legal technology and file storage. And we were like the first companies to put legal files on CD and deliver, because you would deliver like boxes of paper, just reams of paper, and all the report had to be in triplicate because one would go to the oil company attorney, one would go to file, one would go to a different attorney. And so we were the first ones to deliver databases with CD references where you clicked on the link in the database and it matched to the CD and the file opened. And I never stopped being a nerd.
All right, I'm going to have you on my show here very soon, and we're going to flip the script and ask you all the questions about you.
I would talk for far too long on your show, pal. Like
It'll be all right.
We still got to entertain. We still got to tell your story, bro. We're like we've made it to 2018 and we're back to radio, but we keep getting pushed off the beaten track. So tell me, let's talk about Navasota and the fun things you got going on down there. So 2018 to now, what's some of your favorite memories of putting together radio shows and talking to guests?
I've done a ton of interviews. During the pandemic, I really decided I wanted to find something, because I see music artists getting online and doing live streams to stay just in contact, with their fan base and things, because they weren't touring.
Right.
And a lot of folks were staying home. I had people messaging saying, the only thing we know about the outside world really right now, it feels like, is what you're telling us. And I thought, you know what? People need stories. And I'd not done any interviews. And I was like, I think I'm going to do some interviews and, let these artists I see them out working and doing their shows, let them tell their story. And I decided I'd try that. I wasn't sure if I'd be good at it. And so I reached out to Bree Bagwell.
Oh, okay.
The face of women in Texas music. I mean, she is Miss Texas Music. Even though she's from New Mexico, we've adopted her. And we're kind of buddies. And I've known her for a long, long time. And so I'd message her and said, would you mind doing an interview with me? She's like, sure. When? So I scheduled it and got in, and we did that. And because I felt comfortable, because I knew a lot about her. So I didn't know what to expect going in.
Right.
And it went about 20 minutes, and it was just fantastic. And I thought it went really much better than I had anticipated. And I thought, well, maybe this will be my niche. Maybe this is my thing now. And so I just decided I was going to start doing them en masse, as many as I could. So, you send out 12 requests and you might get one response. I'm sure you know the feeling, right? Sometimes you'll get 10 responses out of 12, but sometimes it's only one. But you have to cast a wide net.
Dude, when you're first starting, it's relentless. You just got to keep knocking on doors.
Yes.
300 episodes in, I don't have a problem getting guests, but those first 10 was like pulling teeth, But
I started piling on, and I didn't want to limit myself to just country music artists, although I do a lot of those legends. But I went out. I've done some NFL Hall of Famers, and I've done a lot of actors, comedians, and other athletes, Olympians, and a little of everything. Authors, if they got something really interesting, because everybody has a good story. It's orchestrating to tell that story. And I spend a lot of time, and when I talk to people, they'll know that is a few hours just building an outline. Minus, if they go off the beaten path, I'm going to follow them. But, give them a great interview and a story that they don't get, 1,000 times in their career. I want to give them something different, something they'll remember, and something that fans of theirs will appreciate also things that will bring new fans to their work.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. That's very important, man. And I think podcasts have given us, given entertainers especially, an outlet where they can be a little bit more themselves. They're not so buttoned up and worried about press releases and worried about what they're saying on camera as much as actually just sitting down and having a conversation and, you know, kind of just seeing what comes out.
And usually it turns out better that way.
I did have a comedian on that wasn't very funny and got angry when I asked him to tell a joke, and he said he wasn't at work. I was like, well, shit, what am I supposed to do with that? But,
wow.
Well, I'm not at work. I can't just tell you a joke. Well, shit. All right. I guess moving on. That was, yeah, we've had a few slightly more interesting interviews than that. But dude, I'm a huge believer in ongoing and continuing education. And so some of the things I like to share with the audience are books that have had an impact on you recently. Are you a big reader yourself?
I used to when I had time. Right now, I got grandkids. My stepdaughter is a senior this year, and I do a lot of events outside of here. I was in Fredericksburg several weekends throughout the summer, and I bounce around quite a Bastrop and this and that for events. So our weekends a lot of times are gone, and I do have to go home and see my family here and there. So my free times, I get about 5.5 hours of sleep at night, and so I'll take Sundays, sleep really late, and if I'm home, and then I try to watch some American football. And I love my Pittsburgh Steelers. I got my cup.
Oh,
right
I see that.
there.
Yeah. So how do you get in love with the Steelers living in Paris?
That's a good story. I was 6 years old. One of the years they played the Cowboys, it was probably 76.
Okay.
And back in the day, my dad had one of the big giant console TVs that weighed about 300 pounds. You know,
I remember that. Yeah. Yeah.
And it was a black and white TV. When everybody in the house was cheering for the team in the white, it was the Dallas Cowboys. And I'm a contrarian by nature. So I start rooting for the team wearing black, and it never left. And it just grew and grew and grew, and that's been my team since as long as I can remember now.
And how old were you when that happened?
About 6.
Yeah, dude, it's so strange. I was about the same age when I picked my soccer team to follow.
And who's your soccer team?
Liverpool, and you know
Liverpool.
They're one of the best in the world now. But boy, during the 90s, you didn't want to be a Liverpool fan. That was Manchester United's territory. So growing up in high school, it was a rough road. But yeah, it was all because
same way in Northeast Texas. That's Cowboy country.
Yeah, that is. Everybody I know from Northeast Texas, they put that shit on their front porch.
Yes, they do. And the thing is nowadays you can kind of like whoever you like because everybody's on TV. If you have the Sunday ticket, you watch whatever team you want. But back then you had 3 channels, and the Cowboys played, usually at 3:00 every Sunday.
Cowboys. It was always Sunday afternoon. Was the Cowboys? I can remember my ex-wife. Her whole family was from East Texas. I can remember Sunday afternoons just being on, like it was always on. So,
and boy, it just drove me nuts. But it's all right.
So
my Steelers have done okay. The last, if nothing else, since 1996, we have a better record. They're a 500 team, and we're better. And we've been to 3 Super Bowls since then, winning 2 of those. By the way,
dude,
I just wanted to drop that.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure Orlando's Zimmer frame relay team has a better record than the Dallas Cowboys since 1996. But
probably so.
I'd probably get me shot in East Texas saying that.
We're down in this, I don't know what area of Texas we call this. I guess we're southeast, maybe. I don't really know. We're not central. We're south of central.
How are we not? We're right in the middle. How are we not central down here?
Brazos Valley.
Yes.
Brazos Valley.
I tell you, I like it, dude, because I can be in Dallas in 2.5 hours. I can be in Houston in an hour. I can be in Austin in 90 minutes. I like it right here. It's
very centralized.
It's so difficult to move because I can, again, something's going on in Houston. I can be downtown in an hour and a half. And like, I get to live here and not have to live in Houston in that mess. Yeah, I'm in. I think that's why Navasota's gonna just keep on growing and keep on with that continuation. You've got 105 east-west and you've got 6 north-south, and I think it's just an ideal spot you've got right there.
I think so. We have a lot of growth coming in, a lot of building, a lot of big additions going in. One, towards Plantersville on 105 has 1,000 homes.
No kidding. Tell me,
And for this,
tell us a little bit about that. That's a huge development.
One. And that's all going to fall to the Navasota ISD. That's the Navasota School District. So I'm sure they're making their preparations. Dr. Music is the superintendent. So I'm sure that they've got that in the planning stages.
Welcome to Intermission.
So I don't run commercials on the show, but if I did, I'd remind you about our free community on School, the Clinic. A place where you can learn from me, the small business surgeon, and get direction, support, and accountability from others in the group. To create your free account, go to followsam.live and click Join the Clinic. All right, thanks for that. Back to the show.
Thank you. Come again.
But a lot of these are popping up. I don't know the growth, and I haven't seen the projection numbers, but I know it's going to be high. I mean, you got people moving away from Houston.
Mm-hmm.
You know, in some places, moving away from Austin, you know, and coming here for the country live, especially Houston, because now with 249, from right here, I can be in Tomball in about 30 minutes.
Yeah, it
doesn't take much. And same way going on 290 now that after they spent 40 years and finally got 290 fixed, you can be in Houston pretty quickly.
Yeah, I went 290 the other day, and I was like, oh shit, I guess I'm going to go 249 a little bit longer. They still got a whole bunch of roadworks out there.
Oh no!
But they'll get it done at one of these points. I think that this is genuinely one of the best locations as far as economic opportunities and weather and everything else. I think it's one of the best locations you could pick to live in this country, man. There's a lot of growth here and a lot of opportunity.
And no state tax.
We should probably keep that quiet. We don't want to flood the place. No, we're full. You stay over there. Stay in Oklahoma. Stay in Oklahoma.
Standing room only in here right now.
Dude, I love Texas. I mean, I never meant to stay here. I came on a record deal with a company out of Dallas, and I thought I was only going to stay, 6 months, maybe a year. And I came I had a bag of clothes and a bag of cymbals, and the record company provided the drum set. I bought my cymbals and my sticks and stuff, and I thought it was like a 6-month engagement. And 24 years later, here I am. It's one of I couldn't think of a more welcoming city in the world to go stay in.
So you got here as quickly as you could. That's what they say. You weren't born here, but you got here as quick as you could.
No, and I've been more than welcomed in Texas. Like, you say first generation immigrant, but that's what I am. And I've never had a problem getting along with anybody. It's been a wonderful town for me. And so, talking of that, tell us a little bit about your future and what you got coming up down there at the radio station and the plans for the future of the show, because, you did just win back to back, radio personality of the year. So tell us a little bit about your future.
Big thanks to our listeners for that. So, because that was not me. There were a lot of folks that listen and support us.
You wouldn't have got that if you hadn't have put in the work and showed up every day for 6 years, mate. They're showing some appreciation there. Don't knock yourself. That's a lot of work to win that back to back.
Well, I think I do my show a little different than everybody else, because when I was in radio and learned, it was a whole different type of radio, and I still approach it the same way. I feel like if people listen, I want them to think I'm talking to them and not at them.
Oh yeah,
the difference.
Yeah, and the tone of your voice probably really helps with that. That's definitely a learned skill, eh?
Now, that's a good question. I don't like my voice so much, but
but all those listeners do.
Well, I've had people tell me they like my voice, and that's good. I'm glad. I've just never been a big fan. So I'd like to have your accent. I'd almost trade with you.
Well, the key to habits is to go where they're celebrated. So if you went to England, I'm sure you could have a even more popular radio show. There's a whole contingent of country music fans in England. My brother's absolutely crazy for Luke Combs music. Like, took his wife to Vegas just to watch a Luke Combs concert, like nuts for it. So I'm sure there'd be plenty of demographic that would love your accent in England. Mine's only popular because I'm over here with it, you see.
I'll tell you what, if somebody wants to make an offer, I'll listen. I'll just say that.
You have YouTube. Just do it. Just launch the show, man. Just launch the show.
That's not a bad idea because I don't want to leave my county. I like it.
No, that's the magic of it.
Future plans. I'm at number, I think, 434 interviews, celebrity interviews.
Oh, wow.
I do a lot of local people and things. I include that's a separate number. But I'm looking to hit 500, and I was wanting to try to do it this year, but it's not going to happen. So early next year, hopefully by my birthday in March, I'll be celebrating 500. So that's a good number to shoot for.
That'll be a milestone right there. If you had one guy you could pick up the phone and get on your show right now, who would it be?
Oh man, Sir Roderick David Stewart. So if you know anybody that can pull some strings,
Roderick David Stewart.
Yeah, Rod Stewart. Sir Roderick.
Oh, that fella. Let me think. I didn't think I know anybody that knows Rod Stewart. Nina might.
Nina might.
Nina probably does. Like,
I'll owe her one. There's a lot of folks I'd really like to have on. I could probably make a nice long laundry list of people I'd like to get. I'll tell you one in country music I haven't been able to even reach because some of these folks, they bury themselves and you can't even find a publicist. Terry Clark. Good looking, dark hair, dark eyes, wore the cowboy hat back in the 90s, and she's still great. And she had a bunch of big hits, and so I'd like to get her, and I've had zero luck in getting in touch with her people.
Well, let me rattle around my Rolodex because I might know a couple of people that can make some introductions for you. But Rod Stewart might be a big ask.
I actually talked to Rod one time on MTV Rockline, and I was on the air at a country station.
No kidding.
1991. He was on MTV's Rockline with Martha Quinn.
What did you ask him?
Which of his songs that he had written was he most proud of and why? And I was the third caller on the show on that night. I was on the air. It was funny. Come on, spill. What did he say? I recorded it, with through the board.
Oh, right.
Just like I would here. And it was good. He said Mandolin Wind. No. Yeah, Mandolin Wind was his favorite. I don't remember why he said. I know that was his answer. I've slept since 91. But, that was a big deal. I got to do that.
Yeah.
I thought that was pretty cool.
Yeah, that is cool. Well, dude, do me a favor, right? Before you get too deep into it, shut your eyes and think about who your top 25 dream guests would be for your podcast, and then just make a list of them.
Okay. I could probably do that.
That'd be it, because I guarantee if you reach out to all 25 of them, you'll get at least one, and then you'll have a top 24, and just keep going.
The trouble is everybody asks me about George Strait, and George Strait, the king of country, does very, very little media. He has always been that way, which is why he stayed so popular, because he didn't get oversaturated. I'd like Dolly Parton, but who wouldn't? I mean, she's a national treasure. And Reba McEntire, of course.
Yeah.
There's a whole laundry list of those. I need to get to actors and athletes. Joe Montana.
Oh, that would.
As a kid, I was a Steelers fan, but I love Joe Montana. He's probably my favorite all-time quarterback.
He would be a great one. Yeah. Yeah.
Good story.
Well,
there's some folks like that I'd like to get.
Now you're giving me some inspiration for my show, man. I need to reach out to some of my top guests, man. But you were on that list, so we got you knocked out. This be great.
Blow my ego up. I was on that list.
No, you ever since you came across my path, and I was like, this is an interesting cat. Like I like to have conversations with different people. It does get it's not quite satisfying to just talk about entrepreneurship like the whole time, and it's nice to hear a cross section of people's histories, man. So thank you for sharing yours, dude. It's been great hanging out.
I appreciate that.
Well,
I want to have you on. I'm just telling you that's going to happen.
Well,
it's going to happen.
Bro, I got just a couple more questions before I let you go. All right, but we'll get this wrapped up, dude. This is just like one last question that I ask all of my guests. The show's based around entrepreneurship and around your journey and like mistakes you've made and lessons you've learned. So if you could reach back and talk to a young, aspiring radio DJ, you could talk to yourself 20 or 30 years ago, what's one piece of information that you'd want to give that person just to get them going a little bit better?
Stay with it. Do not give it up if you love what you do. you stay with it. If it's a God-given gift, you have to nurture that. And if you don't, you'll never be fulfilled in your professional life.
Oh, that is the truth, dude.
And something, I had the benefit of being the son of a World War II veteran and stepson of a World War II veteran. Turns out my stepfather and my dad had actually served on the same ship at the same time.
Oh, wow.
I didn't know that. But I got the benefit of being under the learning tree of two of the greatest generation. So what I learned at an early age, never ask anybody to do something you're not willing to do yourself.
Mm-hmm.
And, no matter how good or bad your day is going, you can only control what you can control. So always be on time. Early is better. And have a good attitude. You
Wow.
control all of that.
That's some great advice, man. And all true. Like, literally all true. The only thing you control is your attitude and how you respond to the situation. Like, some great advice for that. And Kenny, last question, mate, before I let you go. For the guys that have enjoyed the show today, what's the best way for them to get a hold of you and to follow you on social media?
Don't have any crazy pages, just Kenny Graves. It's a really loud, blingy red jacket, a picture of me and my wife. It's the same, I think, Kenny Graves 31 on Instagram.
Yes, sir.
And the podcast, as well as just conversations with Kenny Graves. It's not all of my interviews, but I think I've got about 75 on there that I just like. If you want to find all of my interviews and the information on the radio station, it's Willie, Willy, 987.com.
Dude, that's wonderful. Thank you so much for coming on the show, Kenny. We will put all those links in the show notes. And, dude, it's been my absolute pleasure. Okay.
I enjoyed it very much. I enjoyed it, Sam. I mean, you did a good job of grilling me. I don't know how my guests feel. Hey, and just by the way, a plug for you. Small Business Surgeon is in the 2 percentile for all business podcasts on planet Earth. Am I correct?
Yes, sir. Yes.
Well, congratulations, my friend.
Thank you.
Huge thing.
Thank you.
I get to be a part of it now. I'm a guest on here.
Well, and the internet doesn't go away, so you'll be a guest on here forever, pal. It's Kenny, it's been my absolute pleasure talking to you today. Thank you so much for coming on the show. You betcha, and my best to Nina Kay as well. Thank you, sir. Guys, that was Kenny Graves, the host of the Second Cup Morning Show and program director at Willie 98.7. Do me a favor, if you've liked our interview today, go show Kenny some love. Click on his links in the show notes and follow his socials. All right, that's going to do it for the show. You'll be good. Stay out of trouble this week, and I will catch you Friday for Friday Fire. All right, guys, that wraps up another episode of the Small Business Surgeon podcast. I hope that you have taken away some valuable insights from today's show. If you did and enjoyed it, be sure and hit that like and subscribe button and share this episode with someone who needs to hear it. And if you're serious about growing your business and you want to be a part of a community of like-minded entrepreneurs, just go to followsam.live and join our free group, The Clinic. All right, I'll see you next week.